India's Ministry of External Affairs has clarified that India did not associate itself with any communique or document emerging from the Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland. India said that a resolution requires a sincere and practical engagement between the two parties to the conflict, and it is willing to contribute to all earnest efforts to bring about an early and abiding peace. More in this report. The Ministry of External Affairs in a press release has clarified India's stand at the just concluded summit on peace in Ukraine hosted by Switzerland. The Indian delegation, led by Pavan Kapoor, Secretary West, Ministry of External Affairs, attended the opening and closing plenary sessions of the summit hosted by Switzerland in Burgenstock on the 15th and 16th of June 2024. India did not associate itself with any communique or document emerging from this summit. India's participation in the summit, as well as in the preceding NSA political director level meetings based on Ukraine's peace formula, was in line with our consistent approach to facilitate a lasting and peaceful resolution to the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy. We continue to believe that such a resolution requires a sincere and practical engagement between the two parties to the conflict. In this regard, India will continue to remain engaged with all stakeholders as well as both the parties to contribute to all earnest efforts to bring about an early and abiding peace. It is clear that at every opportunity India has sought dialogue and diplomacy as a resolution to the conflict in Ukraine. It was Prime Minister Modi who first told Russian President Putin that this is not the era of war on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Uzbekistan in 2022. Since then, India's stand has been consistent and something that both sides have respected. On December 7, 2023, Russian President Putin said that he respected PM Modi because he cannot be intimidated or forced to make decisions that are contrary to Indian interests. Prime Minister Modi met Ukrainian President Zelensky at the G7 summit in Italy on the 14th of June, just a day before the Switzerland Peace Summit. The PM conveyed that India continues to encourage peaceful resolution of the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy, and reiterated that India would continue to do everything within its means to support a peaceful solution. Prime Minister Modi had also met the Ukrainian President Zelensky at the 2023 G7 summit in Hiroshima in Japan. At the time, India was president of the G20. It is clear from Foreign Secretary Quatra's press interaction at the time that India's stand has remained unchanged.
In meeting with President Zelensky, Prime Minister of India conveyed India's clear support for dialogue and diplomacy to find a way forward. Prime Minister also said that India will continue to extend humanitarian assistance to the people of Ukraine.
India will remain actively involved with all stakeholders and parties, earnestly contributing towards efforts for achieving lasting peace at the earliest opportunity. Bureau Report, DD India. The Kremlin said on Monday that a Swiss conference on the Ukraine crisis had negligible results and showed the futility of holding talks without Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the results of the meeting were close to zero. He further added that Russia remains open to dialogue with all countries that intend to conduct it. And it is also said that the conference provided Ukraine with a chance to showcase the support from Western allies. And DD India's Dasha Chernyshova gives us more from Moscow.
Well, interestingly, Moscow says it is still open for the negotiations, but it says again that the conditions that President Vladimir Putin has most recently outlined are still there and Ukraine has to take them. That is, to withdraw troops from the 4 regions that Russia now claims as its own. Then immediately Moscow will be ready to cease fire and get to the negotiating table. So any conference where the participation of Russia does seem to require this issue. Having said that, we've heard the Kremlin on Sunday also saying that Ukraine should understand that every time that Moscow makes a peace offer, or at least an initiative to bring this conflict back to the political and diplomatic track of solution, the conditions for Ukraine on the ground are getting worse and worse. Until now, Moscow has been saying that any talks should take into account the realities on the ground, but now Moscow Moscow wants the Ukrainian troops out from the entire territories of those four regions, which Russia doesn't have full control of and is still fighting for. So the understanding here in Moscow is very clear that the world majority and the countries that took part in this peace conference in Switzerland, they also took the note of Russia's absence and the meaninglessness of any discussions on the Ukrainian settlement without Moscow participation.